Hello folks and welcome to our game. Myself, Shane Stapleton, joined as ever by Michael Verney, and Cian Johnson joins us from the top of the show this week. Men, how are tricks?
All good, Shane.
Good, Shane.
Yeah, what's going on with you? Yeah, an unusual time, Verney, but of course we have to suit you as ever.
I'm on daddy daycare Thursdays from now on, so I'm only just after getting relieved in the last couple of minutes, but sure, we'll work around it somehow. If we have to train at 6 in the morning, Shane, we'll train at 6 in the morning.
Oh, no better lads to get it done. Rain, hail or shine, we're going to get it done.
And there's plenty of rain.
Oh, there is. Is it finally going to turn? Like, I was actually able to sit outside a little bit for, I'd say maybe for an hour. Gorgeous sunshine, but I'm looking out now and the roofs are wet again.
It's unbelievable. Even on the nicest days, there seems to be rain just around the corner. It's cruel, lads. Like, it really make you think about, like, going relocating to Malaga or Barcelona or somewhere like that. If only the GA was big out there.
Did you see the Paris and Wexford lads that were praying for better weather? They had a mass, so like Father Ted, like, is there anything to be said for another mass?
Right, Cian, we weren't talking to you after the football that went on last weekend, but there's a couple of things that really stood out to you from those games, isn't there? Like, for example, Paddy Lynch.
Yeah, 100%, yeah. And even just like to touch on it at the start, like it didn't feel like championship last week, and it still doesn't. I know we're talking about the weather there, but I don't know. It just felt like an extension to the league. It just felt like another round of the league with the pitches and the weather. And I don't know, there was no real kind of build up or preview even. Like, I always think when the RT program changes from League Sunday to the Sunday game, that's when things start getting serious. But it's just not really anymore. And like, I always like this time of year, like the gap between the league and the championship in the old format, because like the Masters was on, like the Knockout Champions League and the World Snooker Championship. So it was kind of a nice, thing to fill the gap. And you're always looking forward to the first round of the championship. Like, you're 3 weeks out or 2 weeks out, you're kind of previewing the game. But it's just, it's hard to get excited about. But like, even them championship pullouts that used to be in the paper, like, they were class. Like, I don't know, Mike, you probably know better. Are they still going?
No, so it's very the proximity, Keno. It's so difficult now. Like, it's league straight in, so the turnaround time would be so quick now. So I don't.
You need weeks to do those things. Yeah. I remember doing them for the start, and they were a nightmare to do, but they were class. They turned out really, really cool, but they were nightmares to do. The idea of reporting on matches last weekend and being able to turn around the magazine, which could be 32 pages in the space of a few days, nah.
But I totally agree with you, Cian. I'd even up until a couple of years ago, you'd see a championship preview and you'd be like, oh, lovely. You know, you get your teeth stuck into it to see who's the one to watch, and it goes through for every county and their odds of winning Leinster or their odds of winning Munster or whatever it is, and going through their form for the last couple of years. And now this is like people get a lot of people that are very, very pro the club element of the split season. I'm obviously pro it as well, but they get very annoyed and upset when you say about like having time to build up games and tee up games and publicize games. But I do agree with you. Like at the end of the day, Leitrim played 4 weekends in a row. Where's the time to build up anything Leitrim wise? Westmeath potentially could have played 5, ended up playing 4. And there's plenty of other counties in the same kind of boat as well. It's very, very tricky.
Get rid of the pre-season competitions.
Yeah.
So, Cian, right, talk to us about, just last weekend, and maybe with a view to these teams moving forward as well. Monaghan's approach, where they can go. Cavan, really, really good. Paddy Lynch got that goal at the end. Obviously, he looks an impressive player. Like, talk to us about some of that.
Yeah, I think Cavan probably won this game on the sideline, I think. I think Monaghan will be kicking themselves over their kind of approach, especially in the first half. Like, I think Cavan's game management was unbelievable, but like, Monaghan had the breeze and they left kind of Darren Hughes sitting in front of the full back line, and you're thinking, like, did they really need a sweeper with the breeze? And Cavan were just holding on to the ball, killing the clock. And even if you look at the shot count, it was Monaghan had 12 shots and Cavan had 9 in the first half. And you're thinking, with the breeze, like, that's not a good enough return. And I think there were 2 points up. It was never really going to be enough. And sometimes I think when you have the breeze, like, the instruction always is like, the wind is not going to put the ball over the bar for you. Don't be taking stupid shots. Let's work it. But I think at some stage, maybe 15 or 20 minutes gone, when you're not getting the shots away anyway, like, at some stage you have to cash out, and like a 5 or a 6 out of 10 shot has to be worth the gamble, because even if it goes wide, it goes wide, but at least the goalie has the ball in the tee again and it's not going to go too far and you can press. But like, they weren't getting shots away anyway, and they kept losing the ball. But I think Cavan's approach off both kickouts was very good, and I wonder, is that Raymond Gallagher being a goalkeeper as a manager? Maybe they're spending extra time on it and really going into it. And I was even thinking around across both sports and even soccer, like there's not too many goalkeeper managers. I don't know why that is. Maybe it seems to be always kind of a goalkeeping coach, but the Raymond Gallagher's done unbelievable to get that win. And even I thought the 1-2 for Smith's goal at the end was really good. And I think that's something the teams can do more, because it's something that can unlock a defence. Like you were thinking, like if you're marking me and I give the ball away, or I give the one, like the pass, you automatically look to see where the ball is gone. And just for that split second, I can run off the back of you the way James Smith did, and he got in. So I think that's something that the teams can use going forward. But just going to Paddy Lynch, boys, right? So I seen the stat. He's only missed 5 frees all year, right? So he scored 157, 45 frees. So he scored 45 out of 50 frees. Like in them conditions, it's unbelievable. And I think he's really an elite kicker of the ball. And like I coach underage teams in my club, and there's players saying they're trying to get onto development squads, they're trying to get onto school teams and that, and they're being told they're not fit enough or they're not strong enough or whatever the reason they're not been playing. And I always say to them, like, if you can just find a niche, like find one area of your game and just master it, because like in forwards it's always shooting. Like if you can be an 8 or 9 out of 10 in front of the post, like it doesn't matter how much you can bench press or how bad your Bronco test is. Like the manager has no choice but to put you in the team. And I always use Dean Rock as a good example of that, because like he was in an era where that Dublin team were machines of athletes. Like he was never the quickest player, he was never the strongest player, but he played every game in that 6-in-a-row team because Jim Gavin knew he couldn't take him off. He had to start him because it was black spot every time from play or from freeze. So I think that was a big takeaway from the weekend.
I think that's a great point as well. Like in particular, I was actually only thinking about this yesterday myself, and I was thinking about what I was doing 10 years ago or even 15 years ago as a player, and all the improvement elements that I was going looking at. And I was fit anyway at the time, but all the elements I was going looking at is getting stronger, getting increasing my aerobic fitness, getting faster or whatever. And I really regret not focusing way more time on all the skill elements, like focusing more and really going after whatever it is, going after striking on the run, going after being able to deliver a 40-yard pass to hand or whatever. So it's kind of, it's funny you say that. At the end of the day, everybody can get to a certain level of fitness, but like you're kind of you can be in a niche enough bracket if you're, as you say, a brilliant free taker or a 9 out of 10 with ball in hand or something like that in around the goals. So it's, yeah, I hope we'll start going back that way in time as well. Because I was only on an interview with Kevin O'Callaghan from Kildare the other day, and he's what does he do? He does some online coaching and things like that. But he was basically saying that when he was 20 or 21, he was relying on his skill when he was in with Kildare, and his fitness and whatever wasn't up to the level, and he got his fitness up to incredible levels or whatever. But he also made the point that like you don't need to be unbelievably skillful to play intercounty now if you go after the fitness element. And I kind of thinking, yeah, that's great in one sense, but wouldn't it be unbelievable if we went after the skill element way more, not way more than the fitness element, but more than we probably are.
Yeah, and the flip side is like, if you took over a team and they'd been at a certain level for a while, yeah, you could focus on the fitness stuff. You could focus on, and let's say we talk about hurling or football, the skill element. But another area you could focus on is just talking about how you should actually play and sort of figuring out your system if you have a system. Because pretty quickly, like if you go back to skills for a couple of weeks, just doing a load of ball work, that'll come right anyway because you're doing it since you're 5 years of age. If you go back to gym stuff, yeah, you can make that ground quick enough. But if players are out on the pitch and they still don't know the plan 20 years later, maybe that's where the biggest gains, sometimes the biggest gains can be made just by sitting down. But there's another point you made there, Cian, that couldn't but take you up on it. How many goalkeepers go on to become managers? And I suppose, yeah, Raymond Gallagher is one who's obviously started off brilliantly. I mean, we'll see where it goes from here. But he's one. I suppose David Fitzgerald has won everything, so he's another one. I think my own county, Brendan Cummins, he's over the under-20s who are playing tomorrow night. Anyone else jumping to mind?
Donald Cusack has been involved with Clare seniors, and he was Cork minor manager. Ger Cunningham with the Bars, and Dublin. Obviously with Dublin as well. Yeah. I feel like there's more.
David Herty, is he over a team now?
Yeah,
no?
he's in with Tipperary. He's gone into the element.
He was over Kildare. Yeah.
Joe Quaid obviously was involved at Westmeath and with Kildare as well. And I feel like there's more. I think it's one of the nearly the most common positions, nearly, considering there's only one of them, in their 15. I think there's been a hell of a lot of senior inter-county managers that have been keepers, funnily enough.
And you know what? I just started Googling then. I was like, okay, who were great goalkeepers in soccer that went on to become managers? And even Richard Hogan here is commenting that Nuno was a goalkeeper as a player. So Nuno Espirito Santo, he was briefly over Spurs' unhappy time there. Previously with Wolves, did quite well. He's over Forest at the moment. Then I came across another one, Julian Lopetegui. So I don't know if any of you remember this. Remember a couple of years ago, just before the World Cup, he was Spain manager and he was announced as Real Madrid manager, or it kind of leaked out that he was going to become Real Madrid manager. So he got the boot from Spain. And then he lasted just 14 games with Real Madrid as well. And there's this whole thing that goalkeepers are a little bit nuts or whatever. I wonder, if we could get a few comments in, folks, how many people are managers at inter-county level? And just is it one of these things where they're not quite as trusted? And even Cian, would part of it, if the numbers suggest that there are not that many of them, would it be anything to do with, okay, you played in goals, maybe you don't quite know what it takes to play up at the other end of the pitch?
Yeah, maybe so. I don't know why it is. Maybe, I suppose there's more in the hurling there when you start naming them out. I was thinking more from a football point of view, but I don't know,
Billy Morgan.
Yeah. It's hard to know. I suppose goalkeepers are normally vocal and they have a huge part to play, whereas restarts is kickouts or puckouts. So they are kind of a player who you can't really afford to just go out and play. You have to kind of think about what you're doing. But yeah, I suppose when you start naming it out there is more on the hurling side off the top of our heads anyway.
They also see everything in front of them, Shano, on the pitch. So you're watching a game a hell of a lot more than anybody else that's involved.
But then they don't know the experience of playing those positions, you could argue.
Yeah, no, true enough. They don't know the experience of playing them, but they know the experience of, let's say what an inside forward does and what an inside back does, I would say, quite closely. But it's funny you say about the soccer there. Are there any really high profile keepers that have gone on to be managers, even at club level, elite club level?
Dino's off.
Dino, jeez, you're going back a while now.
Well, he was the goalkeeper. I think he was 40 when he was the goalkeeper for Italy at the 1990 World Cup, and I think he went on to manage Juventus to a couple of big titles.
Okay, I'd say he's in rare air there now because I can't think of too many more.
Oh, viewers, you're going to have to get in here and dig us out of a hole. We're not entirely sure. We've gone down a fair old rabbit hole here, and we don't have the answers.
Not the first time, not the last.
No. Is there anything? Was there something you wanted to say about Mayo's forwards as well, Cian, from last weekend? And look, let's call a spade a spade. The game against New York wasn't much of a game. Yeah, no, it wasn't. But just in general, I'm just not really impressed at all with Mayo's forwards. Ryan O'Donoghue aside, I think he's out on his own. He's magic. He has it. But I think outside of that, even the game against New York the other night, this other starting 5 forwards scored 3 points. And I was just going back through their league games there. So the two that they're going with Ryan O'Donoghue inside is Tommy Conroy and Aidan O'Shea. And I think Tommy Conroy's had his injury problems, but I think that game against Dublin when they beat them in 2021, I think that's built kind of Tommy Conroy up to a level in people's minds that I just don't think he's at, and it's maybe a small bit unfair on him. But I was looking back through the league games. So Tommy Conroy played 5 league games this year and came on in 2. And Aidan O'Shea played every league game apart from 1. And they both played against New York. So you're saying 8 matches basically each. Aidan O'Shea scored 3 points, 2 from play, and Tommy Conroy scored 1 point. So it's not good enough. There's no way to dress it up. And that's a combined 16 games. You're talking about 3 points from play. Yeah, Tommy Conroy scored 1 point. He started 5 league games, came on in 2, and played against New York. Aidan O'Shea's played the full 7 games. He only missed 1. So and I'm just thinking from Cillian O'Connor's point of view, he's over his injury problems now and he's had a full pre-season,
And I'm just thinking, how is he not getting more game time? Like, I know the argument will be, he's not, his legs are probably gone and he's not as quick as he used to be, but he never relied on his pace, even in his prime. And you're probably thinking the modern game, you're afraid that, a back is going to run him back the field. But like, I think just do what Kerry are doing with Clifford, just leave him up there. And look, he'll come back to an extent, but like, there's scores in him. Like, he'll take marks. He has the know-how. He'll win frees. And like, you're struggling for scores, and you have the all-time top scorer in championship history on the bench. Like,
is it back to the point you were making earlier about Dean Rock?
Maybe so. Yeah, definitely. I think, anyways. I don't know. Maybe I'm a bit biased because, like, I suppose I'm kind of that type of player that just likes to stay in there and get scores. But like, I think sometimes, like, the first 5 yards are in your head at that stage. Like, just staying inside to the 21, making those kind of east to west runs, getting on the ball. Like, Andy Moran was the footballer of the year in 2017. He was 34, and he never had any pace really in his prime. So, like, I don't know what's going on in training, but I think Cillian O'Connor is, he's been really undervalued at the minute.
What do you think, Michael?
I'd go along with that. I was at the Mayo Monaghan game, and I was like thoroughly unimpressed with the way they were attacking. It's funny, I was looking at even like some of the shots Tommy Conroy was taking on, and it's a lot of there's a lot of speed and a lot of kind of graft and a lot of energy, but probably not the best kind of finished product, I would say. And they were really uninspiring throughout the league. Like, I think Aidan O'Shea wasn't it the Roscommon game when he wagged out to, I don't know who he wagged out to, that was his first score from play in the league, and that was halfway through the league. Go on.
Tommy Conroy's never fully gotten back to his old form though. Like, he did look like a serious prospect a few years ago. That suddenness when he got the ball, that change of direction, just don't know if it's there yet, and I hope it does come back.
Yeah, I was actually chatting to someone about him as well, in the sense that, like, he would have always been seen as the main man with the nail the whole way up, and it would have been the go-to man, get the ball to him or whatever. And I'm sure the whole way up through underage, he probably would have been trying to take teams on by himself and encouraged to do so. And I kind of just think now at senior county level, I'm not sure if he has enough strings to his bow outside of that explosiveness. As Keane says there, you know what you're going to get out of Cillian O'Connor. Yeah, he's not going to be able to make the 100-yard runs. Well, maybe he is, but he might be able to get back up and play that role inside that you want him to play. But like 9 times out of 10, if the ball is in around him, he's going to win it. He's going to set up. He's going to get scores. And I'd be surprised if he's in the next couple of games fairly soon, if he's not playing that kind of bit part role anymore. Because I just think they need some sort of an apex or something with a bit of an X factor up there, because it's definitely not catching fire at the minute. And
Cian, if you're to go back over the last 5 years, like the form of Mayo, so I'm going to move from 2019 up to 2023 inclusive. All-Ireland semi-final, All-Ireland final, All-Ireland final, All-Ireland quarter-final, All-Ireland quarter-final. They're trending away from getting to the top.
Yeah, and like, you have to respect Mayo, like, because like, they're as honest as the day is long, and they'll always be there. I suppose they've had a bit of transition from James Horan era. Like their backline is very kind of like not inexperienced, but they're fairly young. Like McBrien, Jack Coyne, Sam Callan, they're fairly young and they're inter-county careers. But like, I think it's very hard to get excited about them because of their attack and play, and like just what happened against Dublin in that quarter final. Like it's very hard to see something like that, something similar not happening again this summer. Like, and especially when you get to Croke Park, like to beat Dublin or Kerry or Derry, you're probably going to have to hit the 20-point mark. I just don't see where the score is going to come from, when it comes down to it.
Yeah, and as well, like one of their great players, or potentially great players, Oisín Mullen. He's chopped them up. Did you notice that, Verney? You could do similar.
Notice now, to be honest with you. Like, I wonder what sort of abuse is the wrong word, but Jesus, my hair is not that long at times, and the abuse that comes in, people get very
like a rat's nest.
People get very upset about it. But I'm sure Oisín Mullen's probably able to pull it off a bit better, and I'm sure he takes anything that's levelled at him in his stride, no doubt. But yeah, he looks a different man now. Looks sharp now.
No, but to be honest, like, your head of hair sometimes looks like a bird just filled up a helmet with a load of feathers, squashed it all in, and then just slapped it on top of your head. No offense.
The bird did a good job, in fairness.
Bird's the word. Cian, we'll move forward to this weekend, and there's plenty.
Sorry, Shane, just one last point. Sorry, I just want to get your take on this, right? So, just basically, what do you think about the wind, right? If you win the toss, right, I think you should always play with the breeze or with the wind, no matter what, if you're the underdog or the favourite. Because if you're the favourite, you don't want to give the underdog any signs that there's an upset on the cards here. You just want to hammer them down. And if you're the other side, you don't want the favourite getting too far in front because, you know, you're all of a sudden mentally you're thinking we're beaten here. So if you look at the games last weekend, London won the toss against Galway, decided to play against the breeze. Game was over after 10 minutes. They were the underdogs. Leitrim won the toss against Sligo, opted to play against the breeze. It was 9-1 at half time. The game was over. So, and if you look at the Wicklow against Westmeath, like Wicklow took the breeze, got out in front and held on. And the same with Meath. Like Meath against Longford. Meath took the breeze. Meath scored 113 from 15 shots in the first half. And like the game was over. And you're almost thinking like, even from the forwards kind of mentality, like if you're on that Meath forward line, all their forwards scored after 15 minutes. Like at half time, you're thinking, I'm in the game here. I'm after scoring. We're on fire. Like Westmeath only scored 1 point from a free in the first half against Wicklow. Like you're thinking, geez, I haven't touched the ball here. I haven't got a shot off. I could be taken off. So like I don't understand why teams go against the breeze. What would you think?
Well, I'll tell you, Tipperary's hurlers were 8-0 down against Clare or in the league semi-final against the wind, so that would have made an impact. Waterford's footballers, even though they had the wind, I don't think they scored until about the 27th minute against Tipperary in Munster last week. Now, the one time I would say that I would agree with you. I think you should always play with the wind because you don't know, it might change by half time. But the one caveat is, and this is more so in hurling than it is in football, if the sun is in the eye of the goalkeeper and it's that low, horrible sun, then I'd think twice. That's the only time I'd think twice.
Yeah, I think it's. I think you should try and take every advantage you can. But I've heard different theories. I've heard you use the breeze and you kind of have to hit the ground running straight away, or you play against the breeze and there's no waiting around. You have to get in. You know what I mean? You don't take 10 minutes to warm up. There's ball down on top of you straight away, particularly in the full back line or whatever, and you have to work harder. Personally, and you'll think I'm mad, but I remember a fella saying to me 20 years ago, he said, where are you playing that game Sunday? I said, we're playing in Portlaoise. He said, well, make sure, I think it was Portlaoise. He said, well, there's always usually a breeze blowing in whatever direction into Portlaoise. He said, get someone to check with Met Aaron what the weather is like and what way the wind is blowing and what strength it's supposed to be blowing between those, the hours that the game is going on. And he just said, because it's only a small thing, but if potentially the breeze is going to pick up during that time, and it's just a small bit of probably due diligence, and it might sound a bit silly, but there could be very little breeze starting off in a game, and you might know that it's going to pick up, and then you say, no, we'll take it in the second half or whatever it is. But I thought that was a bit of a mad one. It's not something I've ever done. I don't have Met Aaron on speed dial, and I don't expect to ever have them. But that's another level of detail now.
And Met Aaron have been proven to be famously reliable as well. Hey, I was smirking at a comment here, Catherine Coughlin. I'd love to know the name of Verney's barber and ask him where he got his guide dog from.
I had to change barber recently. Actually, I used to always have to go down to Borough to get my haircut, but I changed barber recently, and it took me a while to find the right one, but I have the right one now. And it's obviously evidence there in front of us as well. Yep.
This weekend, right? So we'll just start off with some of the football, maybe in Ulster first, Cian. But Down are going to meet Antrim. They haven't met in the Ulster Championship for 6 years, and Down won that by 7 points. And look, Down top Division 3 before losing the final to Westmeath. What can you make a case here for Antrim and Andy McEntee?
Not really. It's very hard to, but I think like Down would have been gutted about how that Division 3 final ended, and you could see from Conor Laverty's interview, and I'd imagine the players are feeling that as well. Like I suppose their fate is in their own hands in a way, but they're going to have to come through probably Armagh to get to an Ulster final to guarantee Sam. But yeah, I suppose from Antrim's point of view, you're just looking at how Westmeath stifled Down, and as we were saying a couple of weeks ago, how they're struggling to kick points from distance. So you're just saying, can we kind of use Westmeath's template and get bodies behind the ball and frustrate them? But I would imagine Down, and probably similarly to a lesser extent Armagh, will probably be the favourites for them 2 games, and then Meath in a Ulster semi-final. So yeah, no, it's hard to make a case for a lot of the games this weekend, to be honest.
Yeah, just there's the draw for anyone who's unaware of how things are panning out in Ulster at the moment. Would you see it like, okay, Michael, first off, where do you think Down are at? And like, to be fair, they'd probably rather be on this side of the draw than over at the other side where Tyrone, Cavan, Derry, Donegal are.
They would, of course. Yeah, this is definitely the lighter side of the draw. You'd wonder, as Cian says, has the wind been taken out of their sails a small bit, been beaten in that Division 3 final. Have Westmeath and Meath previously last year shown the template of how to stifle them and make sure that they don't get a bag of goals, which they are clearly capable of when a team leaves themselves wide open. I don't think this is maybe as clear cut. I know Down beat them by 9 when they played them in the league. But still 2 Division 3 teams coming up against each other. Antrim were, mid-table Division 3? I think they did 6 points from 7 games. Finished the Talton pretty well last year. What did Meath beat them? Meath beat them maybe a goal score, something like that, in the Talton semi-final last year. They survived, relatively comfortably in Division 3. So it wouldn't be the biggest shock if it was very competitive. For them to actually go and beat them now would be a surprise, all right. But I don't think it's beyond the realms of possibility, particularly with what we saw last week. Yeah, you had 7th place in Division 3 playing second in Division 3. Maybe it shouldn't have been seen as much of a shock as it was with Wicklow beating Westmeath, but it was a big shock. This would probably be a lesser shock. And
it'd be a huge shock, Verney. Come on, think about, like, when did Antrim last win a game in the Ulster Championship?
Good question. I couldn't tell you, to be honest with you.
I could.
Yeah, you couldn't tell me until you looked it up. But it's
due diligence, Verney. You're big into due diligence.
But it's not beyond the realms of possibility. They're not playing particularly badly or anything. They're playing fine. They've been tipping away nicely and finished the league off with a win as well. So it's not beyond the realms of possibility. It's unlikely, but it's not beyond the realms of possibility.
The last time that they won a game in the Ulster Championship was against Fermanagh in 2014. And funnily enough, Fermanagh gave Dublin a decent run for their money. Was that the quarter-final that year? Where
15, I think.
Yeah. Oh, maybe it was a few years. Okay, yeah. But it's been a long
due
time.
Diligence.
Yeah. And the last time they bet down in the championship was 2000. I mean, as you know, Verney, tradition means a lot too.
I love the way it's kind of funny how we get away with saying "bet" in spoken language or whatever, and then you go to write it obviously, and the word doesn't exist. But that's just a brief aside.
Yeah. Like your bet down, for example.
Bet down, yeah, or baited is another one. Baited, we baited them.
Yeah. Cian, will we move on to the next match for Fermanagh against Armagh?
Yeah. I think like Fermanagh had a decent enough league while getting relegated. Like, that sounds stupid to say, but like outside of the Louth game, which was a bit of an outlier, they conceded 7 goals, and Donegal, they were competitive in all the other games. I think Kieran Donnelly's actually done a really good job with his team. Like, I watched them against Clare in the league, and they're actually playing a nice kind of style of football. They're looking to move it a small bit quicker maybe than Fermanagh teams in the last few years. Ross Bogue is playing the sweeper-keeper role very well. I think Garvin Jones has been one of the players of the league. He's been unbelievable. Like, he's done nearly everything he could to keep them up. His scoring is nearly off the charts for a team in the bottom half of Division 3, getting relegated. But I think Johnny Cassidy's missing. Darren McGurn hasn't played a whole pile of football. Sean Quigley and Ronan Jones had stepped away from last year's panel. So, like, Fermanagh are a solid team. I think even that St. Michael's team that won the Hogan Cup is 2019, maybe. Like, a lot of them lads are kind of mid-20s now, and Kieran Donnelly's bringing them through. So, look, Armagh have to show a reaction after that league final. But I think, I don't know, I'd give Fermanagh a small bit more of a chance than Antrim now. I agree with you saying on that one. I go against.
No. I'm not agreeing with you now. I'm going to say that Fermanagh have no chance here either.
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say they have a bigger chance, but I give them more of a chance than I would Antrim beating down.
Indeed, I wouldn't either. No? I'm looking to disagree no matter what. And you know what? I disagree by saying this, Cian. In the 4 divisions of the Football League, how many teams had a worse defence than Fermanagh? And like, traditionally, we'd think they're going to be in dour games and keep it really tight. But how many teams conceded more than them across the 4 divisions?
Hold on a second now. Take the Louth game out of it.
No.
Which was a total outlier. Take the averages of their previous. Take the averages of the other 6 games. That's why I wouldn't.
Fermanagh lost 15-11 in the league.
But let's get back to answer the question, because are we going to sort of say, okay, every team then we need to take out their bogey match? Verney, the facts are the facts, right? They got hammered one day out. Teams get hammered now and again. But I'm asking the question, at the end of the league, the 7 regulation rounds, how many teams had a worse defence or conceded more than Fermanagh? 4 divisions. Don't go look up.
I'd say maybe Monaghan, London,
Waterford.
Wicklow, maybe.
Limerick, maybe.
Just 2 teams, Monaghan and Waterford. So they've the 3rd worst defence across all 4 divisions, across 32 teams. So I think...
And look at what either the 2nd worst or the worst defensive team across the 4 divisions did last weekend and won a championship game. So you just don't know.
Yeah, against Tipperary. Yeah, I mean, Tipperary are also in Division 4, and they conceded a fair whack themselves. But I would certainly say that stat, well, I just kind of pulled it together just there as we were talking, that stands out, like, because traditionally you think Fermanagh, they don't put up big tallies, Cian, but they're generally pretty tight at the back.
Yeah, you would think that, but I don't know. I think like Armagh at home, I suppose they need a reaction after the last day, but I just think that like Antrim will probably put up less of a fight. I think Down are kind of flat track bullies, that they're able to really hammer a team when they get up ahead of steam, and they could score a few goals. So yeah, I don't know. It's a hard one. We'll wait and see. I suppose we'll see on Monday.
Yeah, like the quality of Armagh though. There's just that bit more in attack, Verney. And like if Fermanagh are going to concede, as they have been conceding that one game, fair enough, the way it is. Like Armagh have the weaponry to sort of cut them apart.
Yeah, loads of quality if they play the way probably they played in the 7 regulation games and not the way they played in the final. If they play with that kind of attack and impetus that they had in the group games, but if they play the way they did in the final and they were just ponderous and didn't seem willing to really take anything on, Fermanagh be well in this game. But you'd be hoping that this is a glorious opportunity for Armagh as well on that side of Ulster. It's a great chance to get back to an Ulster final and potentially, get the monkey off the back after that penalty shootout defeat last year. So you'd imagine they'd start off kind of as they mean to go on. But yeah, funny enough, I wouldn't completely write Fermanagh off this either. Like, what the Cian? The 2 fellas on the Sigerson Cup team of the year, Largo Ellis, and the centre back, is it McCaffrey? The Div, and obviously Ulton Kelm is still there now, having come back from the AFL as well. They're missing the names, obviously, that you said they're missing, but yeah, they finished with two wins and a draw, I think, from Division 2. I know they got relegated. I don't think this is a foregone conclusion either. Particularly, lads, like we're talking about conditions as well. It's not like going to be real free-flowing football, nothing like that. It's going to be more league-like. And they finished the league. I think they beat Cavan, didn't they? Beat Cavan in the last game of the league of 4 points. Like
they baited them, yeah.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
They baited.
But Verney, realistically, you're looking at a team, Armagh, who are a Division 1 team heading into next year against a Division 3 team. And I'll throw in another stat here. In their last 4 championship meetings, there's been just 1 goal. So it could actually be dour enough.
And if it's dour enough, not saying you'd be leaning towards Fermanagh, but it'll definitely mean they have a better chance of causing a potential upset anyway. Okay.
Any final word on this one, Cian, or let's move on to the next game?
No, I'd say we move on to Dublin Meath maybe. So that's one everyone's waiting for. Massive game. I don't know why it's in Croke Park.
No Brian Fenton.
4:30. No Fenton, but like a 4:30 standalone fixture. Like how many people are going to be at this game? Would you say?
Oh, geez. I mean,
the fact it's in Croke Park and there will be a decent cohort of dubs that will come in because it's very handy for them.
Yeah.
But how many Meath people will travel? I don't know.
Verney, if it was on in the back lawn, you'd probably pull the curtains after about 10 minutes.
Yeah, I'd watch the dubs now. To be fair, I would stay watching the dubs.
I'm obviously exaggerating a little bit. That seems to be the theme today. But I'm like, there is the concern of a hefty beating here, is what I'm saying. Like, I would love to see this being a real close, tight game. I might actually go into it myself, but the fear is that it won't be.
Yeah, well, as you say, Brian Fenton's obviously out, which could have ramifications maybe later in the year. I know that was his first sending off. but he'd get a 2-match ban if he was sent off later on in the year for another straight red. That's obviously it's a big boost for Meath. Like when Colin O'Rourke came in, he said, within the 3 years he wanted to get up to Dublin's level and potentially beat them. Like you'd be thinking they're a fair bit off that at the minute. And if Longford were able to hit them for 3-12 and cut them open like they did at different stages last Sunday, you'd be fairly confident from a Dublin point of view that they will, they'll do double the damage and potentially, you just need to keep them out for goals. They need to try and make sure they're not hit early. Remember that Leinster final a couple of years ago where Kildare came in with hopes and there was 5 goals inside the first 20 minutes or something like that. They're going to have to try and make sure that their line is not breached early anyway.
Yeah, so Cian, do you think this will get, the way in kind of the last couple of years or when they were transitioning from towards the tail end of Jim Gavin into Deise Farrell's era where, initially they got over the line with an All-Ireland, but then you had Tyrone and Kerry winning an All-Ireland. But are we looking at the era whereby, it was 117 to 4 points in a Leinster final? I went to that and it was grim. Last year, 127 to 114. 2020 was 321 to 9. These are big, bad beatings. But at 2021, it was tight enough, 216 to 113. And I remember Dublin got, was it a goal or something late on in injury time? There was 3 points heading towards the end of normal time. Do you fear for a big beat down here, or do you think Meath could give it a bit of a rattle?
I don't know. I hope they can, but I do fear a beating. I was just looking there. So since Meath won that game in 2010 where they scored 5 goals, they've played 8 times in the Leinster Championship, and Dublin won by a combined 92 points. So you're looking at an average of 11 points. So I think the big thing from a Meath point of view is don't take a beating. I know that sounds terrible to say, and I suppose you can't really. How do you say that to a group of players? But they're on a kind of a journey where they've won the Tailteann Cup. They've had a solid league this year. They've a lot of young players. Ahead of they're in Sam Maguire anyway. So they've got 3 big games coming up in the summertime. So I think just don't take a beating. Just have the same approach that they did to the Tailteann Cup game against Down. Just sit in. If they can keep this to single digits, it can be massive for them. And you can, Colin O'Rourke can say to them, look, we've this and this to work on. We've seen where we're at against Dublin, and we've 3 massive games coming in the summertime. But as Michael said there, when you can see 3 goals to Longford in a kind of tight provincial ground, it doesn't bode well for playing the Dubs in Croke Park. But the only thing I would say is that with Leinster kind of not really mattering for Dublin, really, they're going to be in the SAM group stages anyway. I remember last year, didn't they play Kildare in the semi-final of Leinster?
Yeah.
And they were really poor, and then they thumped Kildare a couple of weeks later in Nolan Park in the Sam Maguire. So sometimes maybe Dublin can take the foot off the gas. And I've seen they announced their panel there, and they have the three boys in it. So it'd be interesting to see will they play or not. And I was even just thinking, kind of from a player's point of view, thinking selfishly, is it not? It mightn't be a bad thing that Derry won that league final. Sometimes you're thinking when you're not in the team, no matter how many All-Ireland medals you have, you want the team to be playing well, but not too well, because there was a lot of talk there in the league that Dublin are playing the best football they have been in years. So you're thinking, Jesus, will I even get back in this team? So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the team selection is. But hoping they can keep it within the handicap. Now that's terrible to say. That's the sell of the weekend. But
Michael, it was 2010 when Meath had that famous 5-9 to 13 points win over Dublin the last time. So Dublin are looking for a 40th consecutive Leinster Championship win. It's ridiculous. Now, do you remember that 2010 game? And
it's crazy.
If you do, can you remember who scored the 5 goals for Meath?
Oh, I just remember Cian Ward got a fair bang at him. Did he get a hat-trick that day?
No, he scored 1-4.
Stephen Bray, no?
Stephen Bray scored 2 goals.
2, yeah. Oh. Did Graham Riley get one that day, no?
No, he scored a point. Joe Sheridan got one, and Brian Farrell.
Very good. I actually remember Farrell's goal now that you say it, into the hill, I think. That was mad, because Gilroy ripped up the kind of script after the Kerry Start Limerick game the year before, and they thought they had a really good defensive system, and then this happened. But they played brilliant football. Remember, they should have beaten Cork in All-Ireland semi-final that year. Do you remember that? Like, Bernard Brogan ended up Footballer of the Year, despite how their championship started off. Like,
they had that late collapse, didn't they? And was it Ross McConnell who gave away the penalty? No, I'm not saying he didn't have to, but I'm just trying. Was it him who gave it away?
Yeah, I think it was McConnell, and obviously should have went and won the All-Ireland the year after. If you look at it as well, those kind of seismic results for Dublin, so that one against Meath, like, probably changed the face of their history for the next couple of years. And they got their All-Ireland. They got their 2 All-Irelands, actually. Then the Donegal game. They didn't lose another championship game until 2021 after that. Derry sliced them open a fair bit in the league final, which was unusual to see. And I think Deise probably has a small bit of an out, in the sense that, like, he can bring back Cluxton now if he wants to, and I don't think there's not one question that can be asked, really. He can put Fitzsimons straight back in there if he wants to as well. I'm not saying he will do that, but I wouldn't be a bit surprised he has a bit of an out if he wants to put some of those older faces straight back in now. Saying that, Cluxton didn't start the first game at Leinster last year, and he started the Kildare game. Then he didn't concede a goal until the All-Ireland final. I think he kept 7 clean sheets along the way. I don't think you'll see Cluxton this weekend, but I think you'll see him in the Leinster semi-final, and then you'll see him the whole way through. Yeah,
you can understand why he might give the other lads, whether it's Comerford or O'Hanlon, give them a game just to kind of give them that bit more experience, because ultimately Cluxton's 42, 43 at this stage. He'll only keep going for so long. If you were to make a case, Cian, for any Meath player, whether it's in attack, like, for example, Jordan Morris, who do Dublin have to worry about here?
I think Meath have nice forwards, and they proved that last weekend. Like, 113 for 15 shots is fair shooting, like, wind or no wind. I think Owen Frain is a player who's really, put himself into that reckoning this year. Had a really good club campaign, and has, it's paying off for him now. He scored 5 points last weekend. Jordan Morris, like you said, is a really nice player. Matthew Costello as well. Like, they do have a nice spread of forwards. Like, I think that they will be able to rack up maybe 13 or 14 points. Like, there is that score in them, but it's keeping it out at the other end is the big problem. Look, I don't know. Like, sometimes Dublin can be flat in Leinster, like we said last year, and it's hard to know. Like, there's a lot of talk, with the championship these days about kind of peaking and when's the right time to peak, and is the team peaking too early? And I wonder, what do you think? Like, is that too easy of a thing to say if a team runs out of steam, like, oh, they peak too early, or if a team's not playing well, they're not peaking? Like, because like as a player, like, or if I was involved with a team, like, I would rather be playing well now, like, than be hoping I'm going to play well in like 3 or 4 weeks' time. So
I'd be the same as you. Yeah, I'd prefer to have not necessarily have the switch on the whole time, but I prefer to. There's something very nice to have in the back of your head to know you've been playing well consistently the whole way through. Personally, I think, and collectively, rather than, oh, it's going to come right. It's going to come right. It might not, but I much prefer, personally anyway, and as a team, to be playing to a good level the whole way through. Now, there are times, you were talking earlier, Keith, you can be playing too well, too early. And like the best football the Dubs played probably under Jim Cavan was the year they didn't win the All-Ireland in 2014. They played unbelievable stuff up until that point. But I like to be playing. I'd like to be playing well the whole way through, if you can at all.
Doesn't it depend on the level of competition you're about to come up against? So an example I would give is Dublin. They don't need to be playing their best stuff at the moment, because they're going to win this game and they're going to win Leinster no matter what. So even if they're nowhere near their absolute peak at the moment, it doesn't matter. Whereas if you're every hurling team in Munster now, they are worried about their peak straight away, and that peak has to go on from now until the end of the championship. So the game has been changed big time since, remember, April used to be the club window, or going into May or whatever, that you could sort of, club games are going on, but the players are still getting trained hard by their counties in the meantime, and you're like, well, we'll use this block. Whereas, like, if you were Clare, you didn't really get the chance to have a block, and neither did Kilkenny, but it matters far more to Clare than Kilkenny, because Kilkenny are going to get through Leinster no matter what. So I just think it's kind of, not everybody has been created equal in the sense of when to peak, Mike.
No, probably not. No, it's like the thing about the Dubs as well. I'm not saying the Dubs are peaking or anything like that, but the Dubs could win convincingly at the weekend, and they could be playing at 70%. Do you know what I mean? And that's the thing. And if they get up early, the problem with playing Dublin is if they get a bit of a run on the early, it's nearly as much mental as anything else. If they get a couple of goals early, or they go 4 or 5 points up to no score or something like that, it's a mental thing, and teams think they can't come back from. They have to be a couple of points ahead of them, or they have to be with them as well. But it's amazing when you think about it. April was club month, and now, like, lads have to be nearly at their peak. Hurlers in particular have to be at their peak the second last weekend in April. It's amazing.
Monster hurlers.
You'd be hoping your boys are at your peak. It remains to be seen.
I think they're out in Portugal, or they're either on the way out to Portugal soon, or they're there already. I'm not entirely sure. We'll go on to the other side of the draw. Whoever, look, Dublin are going to beat Meath, and they're going to be facing the winners of Laois against Offaly. So it's Offaly, I think, finished, was it 6th in Division 3? And Laois, brilliant in Division 4, finished top. So they'll be in the same division next year. Last year, they finished level in the Tailteann Cup. Is there much between these two teams? And what's the hatred levels like? What's the rivalry like, Cian?
It would be there, but I wouldn't say it wouldn't be anywhere near the level of Westmeath. I wouldn't say. But I'd say this is. I think Laois are actually favourites in the betting slightly, but I think it's basically a 50-50 game. I don't think there'll be anything between them. I don't think Laois coming from Division 4, their preparation is arguably better than Offaly's, because they've won a load of games. They've had a league final in Croke Park where they played brilliant football, and crucially, they've had 2 weeks from that, compared to some teams who only had 6 days. So, Offaly done well to stay up in the end, but look, I don't think there'll be anything between them. I think Nigel Dunn is suspended from getting sent off in the last league game. I think there's 1 or 2 injuries as well, maybe. So, look, it's hard to know. I just from seeing Laois in that league final, I was hugely impressed with their forwards. I think Evan O'Carroll takes a huge amount of mind in. Mark Barry, Owen Lowry. So I think they do like to kick the ball. I wonder, will Offaly give them that space that Leitrim did? Probably not. But I don't know. I think there won't be much in it either ways. And it's definitely not to rivalries level of Westmeath. Don't know what Michael thinks, but
no, not even close. There's proper hatred, I'd say, with Westmeath, and they're bitter games generally. With Laois, there wouldn't be that same. What are you looking at? You're looking at Gracefield and Portarlington are probably twin towns on the border, basically right on top of each other. And then you're looking at probably, say, Kinnity and Rosenallis or something like that, which would be the hurling side of Offaly and the hurling side of Laois. No, it'd be far more good humor. Yeah, indeed. It'd be far more good humour than with Westmeath, up around Tubber and places like that. The rivalry with Westmeath is, it's poisonous enough now.
Okay, and the downside of winning this game is you're going to go into the Tailteann Cup in a fairly low ebb after taking a hammering by Dublin, in a way, right? And we all like to win games and all that kind of stuff, and even maybe the experience of playing Dublin, but are you as well off going into the Tailteann Cup, getting knocked out in this game, having a bit of a longer block to build up for that, rather than taking a hammering by Dublin? Michael?
I don't think so. I remember being in Portlaoise 6 years ago when Wicklow beat Offaly in the championship, and it was kind of funny. It was euphoria after, from a Wicklow point of view, and then it's to go off the pitch and you're kind of just thinking they're delighted in the dressing room, and then they're kind of thinking, oh right, okay, boys, we have Dublin next week or in 2 weeks' time or whatever. It's the same. I think you would take a championship win, and no matter whatever about the potential pummeling that you're facing against the Dubs, I do think lads generally would still like to match themselves up against the Dubs, and even say you've played against Dublin, or say you've marked Con, or say you've went up against Fenton or whatever. But yeah, I would agree with Cian. I do think Offaly are very young, very, very young, pretty inexperienced now. Lee Pearson is a captain. I think he's 21. I would say Declan Kelly has started a project, I would say, because there's a load of his guys from the All-Ireland Under-20 a couple of years ago. I definitely don't think you're going to see the best of them this year, probably not next year. It's probably more 2026, 2027, that type of thing, if he's given that time to develop. And I just think in the likes of Mark Barry, Owen Lowry, Evan O'Carroll, I think Laois is kind of veteran, experienced players, and they're in an important area of the pitch. I just think Laois should be able to get more on the board, to be honest with you, than Offaly will be. It's going to have to be a certain type of game for Offaly to win it.
Isn't it mad when you talk about Offaly in either code? It's more or less the same conversation because you had to regenerate everything and build from the ground up and bring through players from underage and all that kind of stuff. It's just the same conversation, Cian. Young players, we're bringing through the young lads that were with the under-20s, minors, whatever, and it still feels like, we're at the start of a 5-year project, no matter which team you're talking about.
Yeah, it's very hard. It's very hard to kind of make progress. We've been in Division 3 for a long time, had a brief spell in Division 2 under John Monaghan. That was when the COVID leagues were split, kind of 4-4. It made it a small bit easier with the regional kind of draw we got. But no, it's very hard. The turnover player is massive as well. And I think that's the problem not just for Offaly, but a lot of the counties kind of Division 3 and 4, where it's very hard, especially from a conditioning point of view, is that if you're an S&C coach and you're working with a lad that's maybe 19, 20, and you work with him for a season or two, and he's maybe not getting a game time, or he goes traveling or whatever, and he's gone off the panel, you're after kind of not wasting, but you're after putting 2 or 3 years into a fella who's gone now, and then you bring in another one who's starting from scratch, and it's just a constant kind of wheel that you're starting over and over again. I think the bigger counties are better at holding a bigger panel and holding a training panel outside of the 30 or whatever, and playing development games. I hear a lot of the big counties that are playing them the whole time, and the counties are not necessarily saying it's all about money, but I don't know, in a county like Offaly or smaller counties, is the expenses there to be paying them lads to be driving to training, or their food and their gear, when they're not even going to see championship time, and I think that's an advantage that the bigger counties have, that they're able to draw in. See, Dublin named 40 players there on that panel there, and I imagine they were looking at a lot more. I think is that a lot of the smaller counties are carrying 31, 32 maybe at the most, so I think that's nearly the biggest problem, that you're starting from scratch with young lads that are, it's like a revolving door.
And then other counties have development teams, and you'd even see, I don't know, is this the case all across the country, but there's a Leinster under-19 development league going on, Michael. I think pretty much most of the counties are involved in that, aren't they?
Yeah, Offaly have definitely been playing midweek, and Daniel Han started, or was down to start anyway, for the Offaly 20. He did start, I think, for the Offaly 20s last weekend, having impressed for the Offaly 19s midweek. So kind of it can be, I think it's an important kind of competition, just to give, maybe just to bridge a bit of a gap, to be honest with you, make sure that lads that aren't playing 20 aren't lost, because as Cian said there, it must be very frustrating. We went through a period there maybe 6 or 7 years ago where there was, you could have had maybe the guts of 60, 70 players looked at across maybe 3 years with maybe 2 managers within Offaly. That's 60, 70 senior hurlers. And we don't have that many players. That means this lad is coming in, he's in for a year, he's gone, you're starting from scratch with the next fella, then maybe he's gone and you're starting from scratch again, and you're always playing catch up. And that's why, at least Declan Kelly with Offaly, he can sell them the dream of, we were here in Crow Park 3 years ago. If you jump on board, potentially we could be somewhere special in a couple of years' time again. But not all lads are willing maybe to buy into that dream now. And I'm not just talking about Offaly, I'm talking about in general. But because you have to be able to see the long-term vision. Lads have to stick to the S&C program to make sure they're up to whatever level they need to be up to in a couple of years.
So, Cian, then, in Lowther against Wexford, this is Louth's first game of the championship. Wexford put a fair old beating on Carlow, 4-19 to 8 points. How do you see this going?
Can I come in on this one really quickly here?
Oh, yeah.
I think this is really interesting, right? So, remember the dubious penalty call against Leitrim, which basically cost Wexford promotion. So, Wexford, players would have been within their rights to take that very, very badly, potentially not necessarily throw the towel in or whatever, but maybe find it hard to get up for games or find it hard to react to it. Their response has been unbelievable in the 5 games since. They've won them all, 4 of them by double digits. They put up 4-19 last weekend. They've been regularly putting up 2-16, 2-17 in games. They're obviously, it's a massive step up in class playing a Division 2 side at the weekend. But Wexford are Division 4 in name only. Had it not been for that Leitrim penalty. And I just think they deserve a word on how they've bounced back. And I know it's a step up in class and it's going to be tough at the weekend, but they didn't half put in a good performance last weekend, albeit against a Carlow team that are probably struggling at the minute. But I think they fancy their chances have been pretty competitive at the weekend, and the recent past would suggest that they're going to be competitive enough.
Keane?
Yeah, absolutely agree with what Michael said there. Like I seen them last year in the Tailteann Cup against Offaly, and they absolutely thumped Offaly. I was really impressed with them. Like some of their forwards, like Owen and Sean Nolan, are as good as players. You see, Mark Rossiter, Ben Brosnan is still contributing off the bench, and even some of the tallies there that Michael was talking about, like their last 5 games, so they scored 419, 218, 410, 114, and 21 points. So, like, I know it's albeit Division 4 and Louder Division 2 team going up the levels, but if you're able to score like that, you know, it bodes well. And like, I think, like, if I was taking over a team, and I'm a bit young now, but I would love to take over a team like Wexford that are putting up big scores, even if they are conceding a bit, because I think it's a lot easier to kind of coach defensive play and set up a team and stop maybe scores going in. I think it's very hard to find players who are able to score freely, as Down and other teams are finding out. So even if it is Division 4 level, if you're able to hit 20 points, I don't care who it's against. You know, it proves you have players who know where the posts are. So yeah, no, I think this will be close. I think Louth have done well to kind of not bounce back, but just keep the level they were at under Mickey Hart, because that was kind of the fear, losing him and Gavin Devlin, that they could start sliding back to where they were. And I think a big reflection of that Louth group is like there hasn't been anyone really leaving the panel. And like they took a massive beating against Dublin in the Leinster final, and a couple of tankings in the Sam game against Kerry as well. So like Gerard Brennan has done really well to kind of steady the ship there. So it'll be tight. I'd expect Louth to come out a couple of points. Maybe Ryan Burns is kind of taking the scoring burden off Samuel Roy up front. But yeah, we're really interested to see how Wexford go, especially from an attacking point of view. Like Louth is probably a meaner defence than they've come up with. But yeah, no, I expect a maybe 3 or 4 point spread here, maybe for Louth.
Verney, you might remember that famous Leinster Championship match between Wicklow and Kildare in 2008. This was Kieran McGeeney taking over. Kildare much touted up against Mick O'Dwyer's Wicklow side, I should say. And it ended up Wicklow 13 points, Kildare 9. Am I right in saying that was Wicklow's first ever championship win at Croke Park at the time?
Yeah, I actually did a piece on it for today's paper. I was chatting to Kevin O'Brien about it yesterday. It was a mad game. Wicklow were 6-1 outsiders going into that game. You had Micko, I think he was 71 at the time. Geezer was Kildare manager, having just taken the reins with Kildare a month after he hung up the boots with Armagh at the end of the 07 season. Wicklow actually had a right team back then. Leighton Glynn, Tony Hannon, Paul Earls, Shawnee Furlong was only a young enough fella. Darrow Hanna in defence. They played some great stuff. They're after winning the Tommy Murphy the year before. I think they had successive wins in Croke Park probably for the first and only time in their history, I'd say. So the Murphy final in 07 and then beating Kildare in 08. And then to remember that great qualifier run they went on in 09 when they ended up in the last 12. Yeah, they were. I was doing a bit of research on it. Do you remember where Micko was unveiled as Wicklow manager?
Where it happened? No.
Yeah, he was unveiled in the Westbury Hotel in Dublin. It was mad. It was like the FAI were announcing a new manager. Sean Mulrine of Ballymore Properties came on board as sponsor, and he was there at the top table. Him and Mick O'Hagan, who was chairman of Wicklow at the time. And it was like, we'll never see that crack again, like, will we? It's nearly 20 years ago now. A manager been unveiled in the Westbury Hotel in Dublin City Centre. Like, you'll never see the like of it again. Unfortunately, because sure, it was like, from a journalist point of view and just from people's interest, it was just colour everywhere. Like, there was so much kind of going on. We'd probably never have that kind of hoopla surrounding a managerial appointment ever again, which is probably unfortunate, really, because they were like, that type of thing is absolute manna from heaven for everyone, really.
Oh, glorious stuff. But Wicklow, and they were so good to watch for that couple of years. But like this weekend, Kildare have to be, huge favourites going into this match. But if I'm to ask you, and I love putting you on the spot this week, what was Kildare's last competitive win, Cian?
It was against Roscommon last year in the Sam games. What? That was when was that? July or
June 18th?
Geez, that's a long time ago, isn't it? To win a game.
I mean, and then they lost preliminary quarter-final to Monaghan a week later. They've lost all 7 Division 2 games since then. I mean, how do you turn that around, Cian?
2018, they lost all Division 1 games and then knocked out Prime Mayo. So there you go. I don't know. I suppose Division 1, Division 2 is different, but yeah, look, if there's anything about this Clare panel, they have to show something. Like, they're almost trying to save their season with this game and then look to a semi-final to get into Sam. Like, I know, like, this management team is probably 4 of their best ever players, like, and look, regardless of what you think of them tactically or whatever, like, they have to show something because, like, they're better than what they're showing at the minute. I was reading Lee Keegan there this morning. He said they were training a training camp in Fort Island there this week. So, look, I don't know what kind of training has been like the last few weeks, but yeah, like, I think going into Tailteann Cup would be a disaster for Clare. I said it a few weeks ago. I really think that that would be the end for this management team if they were to lose one of these games. I think they will be relieved that it's Wicklow, not Westmeath. No disrespect to Wicklow, but I think, you know, beating Westmeath and probably Louth is a lot tougher a route than Wicklow. But I don't know. Like I said it a couple of weeks back, I think if Clare went to the Tailteann Cup, I think a lot of senior players will head off for the summer, probably potentially. Like I don't think, like, can you stand in front of them players who knocked out Prime Mayo and played in the Super 8s and say, look, we're going to win a Tailteann Cup here and play against whoever? I just don't think, personally, I know that's the wrong attitude to have, but I think if they go into the Tailteann Cup, like, that management team won't be there next year. A lot of lads will say, look, I'll get a bit of travelling in and be back for 2025
It's a totally different scenario than O'Rourke last year with Meath, who was in his first year and was able to sell them something. No, I would agree with you. You'd be very surprised if they won the Tailteann Cup if they ended up in it, to be honest with you too, because they could be on that much of a downer and potentially missing a couple of players.
Yeah, for sure. Cian, there's a question in here. Which team can push on this year? I'm not sure if that relates just to Leinster only or in general. What team do you think will make a burst?
Across the whole country, or geez, that's on the spot now.
That's what we like to do, Cian.
Yeah. Who will I go for? Maybe do some sort of a championship preview. I'll give a chance to give me a bolter. I'd say in terms of all Ireland, I think there's 3 teams out in the tier on their own with Dublin, Derry, Kerry. I'd have it in that order. After that, it's anyone's guess. I'd say Galway, Mayo. Don't know where they're at. They're kind of all over the place. Donegal, I suppose, are making progress. I'd have them up the pecking order. But Armagh, I'm never getting excited about Armagh again until they win something. It's just too hard. It's too hard. They just keep letting you down. But yeah, I don't know. Galway have all the injuries, lads. You see their last weekend, Tom O'Callaghan came on after just been out injured, scored 2 goals, went off injured. Johnny Heaney went off injured. John Maher had got injured between the Kerry game and this game. And I seen Wonder Selectors was saying there that 21 injuries at training. Do you see that?
Yeah, mad, yeah.
Like, they only have to play small sided games. Like, I know injuries can happen or whatever, but there's something seriously wrong when 1 and 2 out of your players are injured. Like, I know, like, these days everything is monitored, like your GPS and how many miles and high speed meters you're meant to do per week. And if you're going into the red zone, you'd be pulled out of training and all that, and just hamstring tests done before training. But like, I like, you can go over on your ankle or you can do your knee and it's just bad luck. But when you have 21 injuries, seriously, something has to be looked at. Like.
Okay, well, look, I think we're finished up with the football, Cian, so we might let you go there. So, as ever, thanks for joining us. Great insights as always.
Cheers, lads. See you again.
Cheers, Cian. Hey, Shane, a quick one for you. I meant to say this to you on Monday, but the ladies' Division 1 final last Sunday, it was in at it. Armagh beat Kerry in it, and it was their first league final appearance, Division 1, and first win. But there's a player playing for Armagh, and I've never heard the like of this, Caroline O'Hanlon. So she's 39. She's been playing for Armagh for 23 years, but she's also been playing netball for the last 22 years with Northern Ireland. She plays professional netball with the Leeds Rhinos in the Netball Super League. So either every Friday or Saturday, she flies over to play a game and then flies back the next day to play a league. And then every Tuesday and Wednesday, she flies over to train with them and then trains with Armagh the other 3 days of the week and practices as a GP for 3 days of the week as well. Is there a busier sports person in the country.
How did she play?
How did she play last week?
Yeah.
Oh, good, very good, yeah. And she came off injured in the netball game after 15 minutes. She had a hip injury. I'd say she had to get strenuous physio to get playing, but she played the whole game and played very well, and generally is one of their best players. She's a former footballer of the year. I think she's a 3-time All-Star as well. But like that is crazy to be doing that at her age. It's unbelievable, phenomenal.
Yeah. Netball is relatively non-contact, isn't it? Like, so you're not allowed to run with the ball. You have to stop and then throw. Like, so you run when you don't have the ball.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, you stop completely, and you kind of have nearly a free shot, or unless somebody can get in your face, kind of without contacting her or whatever. But even it's just the fact that she's over in England on Tuesday and Wednesday, and then she's back over there at the weekend, and she's training with Armagh, and she's playing a game with Armagh at the weekend, and she's practicing as a GP for 3 days a week in Newry. It's just and like she's nearly 40 as well. Like it's phenomenal. Whatever about doing it in her mid-20s or something like that. It's crazy.
Hey, there's a couple of big underage games coming up both this evening and tomorrow evening. I might just quickly run through the fixtures, and if there's anything that springs to mind, jump in. The Munster this evening, round 2, this is the minor. Cork are against Limerick, Waterford are against Tipperary. So as you can imagine, I'm really looking forward to seeing Tipperary. And Waterford were a little bit disappointed against Clare last week. Tipperary, didn't play for 60 minutes, but when they looked good, they looked very good. And Cork, I think even though it wasn't perfect from them, they can feel like I can't remember the name of the centre forward. It might be Mark O'Brien off the top of my head, but he looked really good. So he'll be looking to do a bit of damage again. Then tomorrow evening, the Connacht minor football, that's on Mayo against Roscommon, Galway against Sligo. Also the Munster under-20. Cork will meet Clare. Cork obviously reigning All-Ireland champions. Limerick against Tipperary. Over the weekend as well, there's some Leinster under-20 championship as well. Kildare against Carlow, that's in Tier 2. Also in Tier 2 will be Westmeath against Derry. And then Tier 1 of Leinster, Dublin, Galway and Wexford Laois. So any thoughts?
Yeah, the Cork Clare game will be very interesting under 20 because that's the 40-point game from minor. So it's going to be very Clare showed no effects of that the last couple of years. Beaten in the Munster final last year in a brilliant game by Cork. This is the crew from 3 years ago now. By all accounts, Terence Fatty his reputation down around Clare is glowing by all accounts, and the county's probably on a bit of a high at the minute. So it'll be I think that will be just fascinating to see how the gap has been bridged significantly. Obviously, it'll just be interesting to see what the gap is between the two of them now, if any. But you'd imagine you'd still be probably fancying Cork in that one. And the Tip Minors was interesting to see. Brendan Cummins' young fella among the subs, and Liam Cattle's young fella. Yeah. Liam Cattle's young fella. I think Jodene's young fella is playing with the Cork Minors as well. So it's a bit mad when we're kind of getting to that age where you start seeing the young lads of all the lads that were your heroes growing up. It's a little bit worrying.
Was Cummins your hero?
You know what I mean. Like Jodene would have been anyway. But it's just mad. It's a sign of the times.
I more looked at Jodene as a tyrant because of obviously from Tipperary. But by God, what a player when he was in his
just to be able to do what he could do for his size, he just I remember him giving Kevin Keenan a torrid time in the first half of the 2000 All-Ireland semi-final. It was just vintage. Every time he got the ball, he decelerates straight away and create space for himself. And he was just that beautiful little kind of impish forward, and he's just so accurate. And his free-taking style, where I'm trying to think of which foot. One foot went back. I don't know if it was the right foot or the left foot. I'm just trying to think. He took a step back. He was poetry in motion to watch. And because we were there, we played them in 99 and 2000, and all you'd hear is Dino. It was brilliant. Those are times that stick with you when you're a young fella growing up or whatever.
No, I don't. No, I do. Do you know, I was looking at some of the quotes coming out of Declan Hannon this week. He was at a championship launch, and he was been asked about some of the different injuries. And we know that Darragh O'Donovan's going to be missing the first couple of rounds. But I suppose, who else off the top of our heads? Like Dan Morrissey's been a bit of a doubt. Peter Casey, we know, is out with suspension, but that's different. Kyle Hayes has only played 1 out of the 6 games so far for, fairly obvious reasons, albeit there was also an ankle injury in there. But Declan Hannon was saying that we've been fairly unlucky the last number of years picking up injuries, and now Darragh O'Donovan has gone as well, which is a huge shame. I think he's a highly underrated player, and he will try his level best to get back for the latter stages of the championship. We just have to perform as best we can now with the players in the squad that are fit and ready to go. I wouldn't say he's underrated. I think everyone rates Darragh O'Donovan really highly. But when you look at them getting through championships in the last couple of years, where, let's say, 1 year, I think Richie English had been starting, then did his cruciate, they went on and won. Sean Finn, he did his cruciate last year. Hannon was out. Year previously, Cian Lynch out. Are we at that tipping point now? Like, number one, are they unlucky, or is everybody getting this amount of injuries? And number two, are we going to reach that tipping point sooner rather than later where they can't continue to absorb them?
Yeah, no, I don't think they're unlucky. I think that's just the nature of it. Every team has big injuries the last couple of years. I've kind of been half thinking that the last couple of weeks, just a couple of things that are maybe stacking against them. They're obviously still favourites to win the All-Ireland. They're still favourites to win Munster. But it is not beyond the realms of possibility that they don't qualify for Munster. And you kind of have to take that on a week-by-week basis and game by game and see how things are going. But like, if they're beaten first time out and they pick up another injury or a suspension or something, like there's a sense that a few things are kind of they're starting behind the 8 ball a small bit now, with O'Donovan been out for the first 2 games and McCasey been out for a game as well. It only takes a couple of more little bits and pieces. But saying that, all teams are going to have their little bits and pieces throughout it. It is just like Munster is just a survival of the fittest. You just need to survive it. You just need to get through it. If they get through it, they're definitely the most likely All-Ireland winners. But that's not beyond the realms. It's not beyond the realms of possibility that they don't get through it.
Do you know, like, you go back to 11 and a half months ago, I think this was around the time that Limerick had beaten Waterford in the first round of the championship. And all right, that was the game in Thurles. And afterwards, John Kiley, he was talking, because they had won the league so convincingly, and everyone said, you're going to win the All-Ireland, you're going to do the 4 in a row. And to be fair, we think they're going to do the 5 in a row, but it's going to be done really hard this year if it is going to happen. But 11 and a half months ago, he said, let's be honest about it. There was some amount of bull SH1T spoke about our team in the season ahead this week and the week before. It's a softening up exercise from those outside of our camp, but we're around a long time. We know that it's all folly and nonsense at the end of the day. Like, his tune will be nothing like that this year. Or certainly, that isn't what everyone's saying. Everyone is saying, fair enough, you're still the favourites. But nobody's thinking they're going to cruise it this year. It's going to have to be done. Like, they're going to have to claw their way through. And like, this whole injury issue here, like, are injuries going to start to clear up as the season goes on and after going through 4 to 5 Munster games if they get to a final? Or is it only going to get more difficult?
Yeah, you don't know. See, the thing is, after that, but like it's the opposite now for Kiley. I would say for the 4 weeks going into the Clare game. I don't know how he operates or how he motivates, but Clare are the team on top at the minute. That's the way it'll be painted. Clare are the team on everyone's lips after winning the league. We've got our injuries. People are, I'm sure someone will say, it'll be caught somewhere, or they'll underline a paragraph or something said somewhere where somebody wrote them off after Kilkenny beat them. But the fact that we're talking like this, Shano, is probably motivation for them. That there are any doubts, like, that's the way people take it. That's the way people will glean any bit of motivation they can, particularly at this stage when, not saying your motivation should be any lower now, but like, they've won 5 All-Irelands. You are looking for any little thing maybe to stoke your fire at this stage, any little extra bit of fuel that you can throw onto the fire. And there are little bits there. The whole, Willie or won't he play Kyle Hayes and the different things as well. There's lots of stuff there. And I think Richard Hogan mentioned it there about a siege mentality. And I'd say there will be a bit of a siege mentality to Limerick this year. Not something that there has been before, to be honest with you. I don't really remember that before, but it wouldn't be. They'll do whatever they have to do to survive, and if that means, like, even bending people's narratives a small bit, I'm sure they'll do it, whatever it takes to get through.
Yeah, they'll certainly do that. But yeah, look, I'll just go through the comments.
Hey, come here, Shano.
Yeah.
If you have it there, the AI predicted destination of the Liam McCarthy over the next decade predicts indeed, I think you tweeted it out earlier on, that Limerick won't win it. And who will win it this year?
Tipper back. That's what it seems to be. Tipper back, and look, Limerick, they'll come back and win one next year. But after that, it's going to be a barren spell for a long time. We're going to have to wait till 2031, and maybe some of these young guns, maybe Cathal O'Neill will be hanging on for his second All Ireland as a starter at that stage. I know it's kind of, like, to be fair, I used to use AI a lot, ChatGPT a lot, and I was using the paid version and everything. But I think there was some sort of copy or some sort of issue where it was learning from copyrighted material and sort of spewing it out as its own or something like that. So they had to sort of take the edge off it a little bit and stop using this copyrighted material or stop leaning on that. And it just became as dumb as hell. Like, I was using ChatGPT and I was asking it questions and I was like, what is going on here? So I stopped using it. So I don't think we have to worry about ChatGPT being too accurate. But to be fair, at least somebody thinks Tip will win the All Ireland this year.
Well, I was going to say I thought ChatGPT and AI was the future, but when I saw that, I said the computer is broken.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't necessarily believe in what's happening here. Like, you certainly don't think Tipperary are going to win the All Ireland this year.
No, just like saying that, like, nobody said Offaly were going to win the All Ireland back in '94. They weren't a team in anyone's lips. But how big of a departure is it to say that Tip would win All Ireland this year? Like, is there a chance Tip could win All Ireland this year?
Look, this would be a softening up exercise from you now if you were trying to get me to say that.
No, I'm actually not. No, genuine question. Like, can Tip win an All Ireland this year?
Oh God.
I'm actually no genuine. I'm not trying to get. I'm just. Do you think they have even a remote chance of winning All Ireland this year?
If Limerick somehow don't get through the Munster Championship, I think it's anybody's at that stage. So if Limerick, I think there's like a very small chance that Limerick won't get out of Munster. That's the only way they'll be caught as far as I'm concerned. So if they don't, that means Tip have a 3 and 4 chance of getting out of Munster. So I do think there is a small case you can make, but it's quite remote.
Yeah, no, I think the fascinating thing about Munster is I think they'll take out someone, but I'm not sure who. I'm not sure whether they'll get out of Munster. I'd probably lean against it at the minute, but it would be a fair departure to say they'd win All Ireland this year. It would be like that would be a shock of shocks. It'd probably be a bigger shock than Limerick winning in 18. Like Limerick winning in 18 before 18 started, before the championship started. Once the championship started, it wasn't that big of a shock. They beat Tipperary first time out, I think, by 6 points. But it would be a massive shock. Yeah, massive shock.
It would be huge. Noel Walsh says, hi guys, can't wait to see you in the Dome. So lads, that's on this weekend. Just a reminder of the lineup that we're going to have down there in Thurles, which is situated right beside Semple Stadium. So it's handy out. John Milan, Kieran Carey, Eddie Brennan, Seamus Callan. Go ahead and scan the QR code if you want to go and get it on the X page or basically any of our pages, anywhere we share any of that. My own personal account, your account, doesn't matter.
Milan says to me, I was on to him yesterday, said, is this being recorded? I says, no, Mul. Or he says, lovely. He says like this. So it should be good crack.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. People might be expecting that the show will go up later on. It won't. This is live and raw and probably a bit ignorant.
Very raw, very ignorant, no doubt, with the two of us involved.
Yeah, for sure. Do you actually, this is a question I wanted to put to you. Do you think that the monopoly that Limerick have held in hurling for the last, well, I suppose 5 out of the last 6 years, is that a good or a bad thing?
Is it a good or a bad thing? I'd probably look at it differently because they're not one of the traditional three that have had a monopoly at different stages down through the last 100 or so years or whatever. I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. As we always say, like the best games we've had over the last 5 or 6 years have always involved Limerick. So no, I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. And they're exploiting the best generation of hurlers that they've ever had. So no, I wouldn't say it's a bad thing. Would you think it's a bad thing?
If it keeps going on, and if the games weren't as good, and I do agree, like, because we've both made that point. Most of the good games do involve them, whereas in the previous era, when Kilkenny were winning it, you basically had to wait till the All Ireland. on a typical Kenny match to have any sort of entertainment. It was fairly poor stuff. Like, fair enough, Limerick are the number one team, but there's lots of teams that are able to give them a right game. Unfortunately, some of the games last year, like the Galway and the Kilkenny games, they fell away after 45 minutes. But in the main, they've been very memorable games.
Oh, definitely, yeah. No, the best games in recent times have nearly all involved Limerick. Fiolas, will there be Buidale at the Dome? Indeed, there will.
Indeed, there'll be all amounts of it. So we expect you in there, and we expect people to have a good time, roaring, yelping. And obviously, look, I'll be encouraging the locals to give you a decent welcome. I would hope to get a decent one myself.
No, it should be great crack. Yeah, looking forward to it. Should be a stellar cast as well.
Yeah, for sure. What do you make of the poor take-up of tickets for the Waterford against Cork game? Like, there's some concerns down around Walsh Park that the Travelling Rebel supporters will outnumber Waterford.
Yeah, more than a concern, I'd say, Shane, because they have doubled the amount of season ticket holders as Waterford have. And, like, I can't, but it looks like some of these tickets are going to go on general sale, which it's head scratching, really, that, the biggest game the biggest game so far in the redeveloped Walsh Park, that that some tickets that have gone out to clubs will be coming back and recirculated back into the system. It's mad. It seems mad, but there has been a bit of an apathy around the Waterford senior hurling team, in the last year or so, and a lot of it is to do with. And I'll make the point again. I loved watching Waterford play under Liam Cattle. I have to be straight. I don't like watching them under David Fitzgerald. I don't like their style. They're not exciting to watch, and it looks like the fans and the people on the ground are speaking with their feet, and also do not believe that they're an exciting team to watch, or maybe don't believe that they're a team to get behind, which is very disappointing. But I can understand it somewhat as well. But imagine having a home game where you're going to be outnumbered and there's going to be more noise from the travelling support. Like, they're not playing Mayo, like, do you know what I mean? Like, where that would happen. Or the Munster, I heard a good one about where were Munster playing last week? They were playing over in Franklin Gardens in the Champions Cup, weren't they? And to increase their allocation of tickets, you had Munster people like making up that they had English addresses and stuff like this. There's unbelievable at sourcing tickets, and they bring a mad kind of travelling support. But imagine to say that more Cork people will be in Waterford City for a championship game than Waterford people. It's a bit of an indictment, really.
Yeah, and you'd say one thing if there was like a huge capacity, and because of Cork's massive population, that therefore they're bringing 25,000 and Waterford only have 20. But we're looking at a stadium that's capped at around a 12,000 capacity. So the notion that you couldn't get in, 6,001 people in there to have the advantage, that's quite something. And like in the Waterford News and Star, the county chair, Sean Michael O'Regan, he was saying, we want to get a huge crowd into Walsh Park for the Cork game. I'd ask supporters to get in touch with their clubs and get their tickets as quickly as possible. When Cork comes to town, be ready for them from a supporter's point of view in the stand and shout on the team on the field. I mean, but like 4 defeats from 5 league games, they've dropped down to Division 1B. They're like, the thing I'd say about the playing style is, right, so you can obviously play a million different ways. You can go long ball all day. You can play through the lines. You can do a bit of both. You can do running style. You can do whatever you want. And the 2 different styles could be used with the same team, and both of them might end up, winning you stuff. Like, you might have a manager take over a team, and then the next year it's a different manager. They play a different style, but the team wins anyway. If the team believes in it, they will play 100% to that. And therefore, I think you will get big returns on that. And I sometimes look at the team and I wonder, okay, maybe every player is behind it and they might be pushing for it, but do they all understand it? So even if they're going out their best will in the world, to us, it looks like a confused plan because, well, like we don't see the clarity. You look at Limerick, you see the clarity, you know what they're trying to do. A lot of, like Wexford in the last maybe year and a half, you've just been a little bit unsure. So you're wondering, are they understanding what's expected of them, or does the plan just not work in the first place? But I look at the Waterford team and I'm like, okay, those lads could be 100% given everything they have, but I'm just not entirely sure that they know what they're trying to do. And if they do, does it actually work?
Yeah, no, I'd agree. And we talked about the tactic of, nearly abandoning their defence on some of their own puckouts and things like that. Like, I don't know. I don't, the risk reward. I just don't see it being worth it, to be honest with you. And when you individually put their talent down on paper, and I've listed them all out before, but they do have some of the most exciting players in the country. And if it all clicks, have they the potential to take down someone big? Without a doubt. Will they get out of Munster? I think it's hard to see it at the minute, but they could take someone out and really ruffle a few feathers. And I'm not sure if Tip and Waterford. Tip and Waterford are probably my 4 and 5 at the minute, but I do think they'll take somebody out and they'll upset somebody's campaign along the way.
Who's getting the wooden spoon now?
Oh, Waterford would be number 5 at the minute. Anyway, like it would take a fair departure to say that Waterford are going to get out of Munster at the minute. I would think. I think it's going to be very, very difficult for them. And we don't know the injury status of a lot of their bigger players as well. Stephen Bennett hasn't played since that game in Walsh Park. Was it the Wexford, the Clare game? He came off and he hasn't played since then, and he's obviously in trouble with his hips anyway. So his fitness he's gonna find it hard to get it up to the levels it needs to be, especially carrying a knock as well. There's a lot of unknown about them. I did hear that their training camp over in Portugal went very well by all accounts. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. Hopefully, it'll be something like last year where they throw something at the first game that really, really, sets the cat among the pigeons. Hopefully so.
I'd say a lot of those locals over in Portugal are getting used to Gaelic games at this stage, the amount of teams that are heading over there for training days or training weeks even. But one other point I'd make is I'm seeing a comment there about underage Waterford not being as good as they were. And there's a bit of a point to that. Like I watched their under-20s in terrible conditions last week against Cork, who would probably be the favourites for the All-Ireland. And I wasn't blown away. And I think I saw them in another underage game recently, and I wasn't that blown away. I'm trying to remember who they played the other night. Maybe I'm mixing up games, but still, you look at like who they've brought through in the last couple of years, and I'm sure you can add some names to it. But the likes of Pádraig Fitzgerald, Mark Fitzgerald, the other Pádraig Fitzgerald, even Seamus Fitzgerald. There are other players that aren't called Fitzgerald coming through as well. But like there are some good players coming through, irrespective of whether those teams are pushing hard to win underage championship titles.
Oh God, there are. Yeah, throw Conor Ryan in there as well. And like Mark Fitzgerald is a player to build a team around. Whether that's a 3 or 6, probably 6, I would say, is the most likely one to be the permanent successor to Tadhg de Búrca. We don't know his fitness either as well. Like we haven't seen him yet. Maybe he'll be ready to go come first round of Munster. But it'd be a fair departure to say he'd be ready. They have got plenty of underage talent, to be fair, and all you need to do is get through 2 or 3 each year onto your senior team or onto your senior panel. But yeah, I hope they're waiting in the long grass and there's going to be something really big come Munster, but I just have me doubts.
PWell74 is talking about Cian Lynch. Doesn't have the legs for midfield, and when right, nobody has been able to handle him at centre forward. Yeah, I mean, it didn't happen for him, certainly, against Kilkenny in the middle of the field, and he was taken off early enough. He doesn't look 100% right, but against Galway at centre forward, he did look like he was able to orchestrate play a little bit more. With Darragh Donovan out, do you see him moving to midfield, or do you see somebody else going there?
Tricky one. A lot of it will depend on what he's been able to do probably in the last month and how he's moving, but he definitely has way more of an impact on the game at centre forward. He knits the whole play together at centre forward, and all of his best games, would say, in the last 2 years, would say, have all come in around that 11 slot as well, where I suppose you're able to move a bit. You decide when to move at centre forward, really. Whereas at midfield, you're probably always moving, and you probably have to open up the legs. Sorry, I know I'm going to say that. I say that when we're talking about horses, they open up, but you have to go. He's going to have to go at full tilt a hell of a lot more at midfield than he will at centre forward. So yeah, I'm kind of thinking about it a bit more. I know I said maybe last week that there's potential for Hayes to go to centre forward and Lynch back to midfield. Lynch at 11 is danger for everybody, and it's a very, very big positive for Limerick. So I'd be surprised if he's not restored to 11.
Did he not play midfield in the All-Ireland last year and was unbelievable?
He was centre forward most of the time. in
Was
that
he
game
wearing
last year.
9?
Yeah.
I'm just trying to remember.
He was. Richie Reid was around him. No, he was the one that was keeping him in it, even in the first half. Even when they weren't playing well. No, he was generally centre forward last year in that final. Yeah.
Okay, so Cuckoo's gone back to Waterford saying these players coming through are nowhere near the standard of Bennett, Barron, De Burka. Adrian McGrath says Stephen Bennett, he was in goals in an A versus B game. For the Bs, they had a massive row on the other hand, which is a good sign. That can be a good sign.
I'd agree, yeah. I'd agree, yeah. It's no harm having it. It's good to show lads are interested. When lads are disinterested and there's nothing like that happening, that's a bad sign. If tensions are up and lads care and there's a bit of a row, that can definitely be turned into a positive.
Yeah, Richard Hogan and Adrian McGrath have more comments. In Limerick in Limerick system, the half forward line has a massive physical workload to cover Hannon and Burns' pace issues. Richard Hogan says, surely you play Lynch at 11 and O'Neill at midfield, given his ability to get up and down the field right now. Yeah, I mean, like Lynch moved to centre forward after 25 minutes of the first half in last year's All-Ireland. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, was it? Yeah, and I'd have to look back on it. I just know that he did most of the damage around centre forward anyway, definitely.
So if Peter Casey is out and if Lynch plays centre forward, who did you say your midfield option would be again? David Reedy, maybe?
David Reedy, Cathal O'Neill's going to have to come in somewhere, isn't he? Like he's going to have to play somewhere, you'd imagine.
Could he potentially play the Peter Casey role, which is a really specialised role, or do you go with Graham Mulcahy? Because, Cathal O'Neill hasn't repped that position in competitive games.
They're big on having something strong in reserve, and that could be 3 points off the bench for O'Neill. It'd be fair harsh if he didn't start. It'd be fair harsh after the league he had if he didn't start. But they know. See, will Graham Mulcahy come in and turn a game at this stage? Probably not. But he could give a fair good 50 or 55 minutes, and he knows his role down to an absolute T.
Adam English didn't have the greatest league semi-final, but he would you could see him sort of floating from a 13 or 15 position.
I think he's more naturally suited to that position than O'Neill. Like, I think O'Neill's biggest strength is that kind of getting a ball out in the middle of the park and that kind of lobby kind of strike, really lazy strike that he has, but to just go over the black spot. Like, I'm not sure if he'd necessarily be suited to that kind of roving corner forward role, because he's probably wouldn't be roving enough if you get me. I think he's best in around middle of the park and getting on ball there. Like, should the All-Ireland final last year, should he put over a couple of crazy scores from distance?
And next week we'll really get stuck into the previews of the championship matches. Looking forward to those. But just before we finish up, I see a report in the Examiner that a comprehensive integration of the GAA, LGFA and Camogie Association could cost up to $1 billion. And that would obviously be a lot to do with upgrading facilities and so on. But that is eye-watering stuff, really. And you kind of wonder, why would it be $1 billion?
Why would it be $1 billion?
Okay, so all of these teams are playing as things stand. So, even though it's tough to find pitches and all that, why would it go as far as $1 billion?
Well, I suppose one would be getting, would say, all of the senior county camogie and senior ladies football teams on par with, would say, how senior men's inter-county teams are being prepared and obviously been, looked after expense-wise, gear-wise, etc. Then there's going to have to be, in clubs the length and breadth of the country, there's going to have to be way more facilities developed. There's going to have to be more pitches, more grounds. Probably, I know you'd mentioned to me off air, there's going to have to be more all-weather facilities, more facilities with lights. I'd say $1 billion is a lovely big figure to put on it, as in it caught your attention straight away. Whether it will actually come to something that big now, I'd be surprised. But there are monstrous costs involved, and it's not as simple as, we'll integrate and everything will be great. Like the knockdown effects for clubs, club executives, county boards, county executives, finances. There is so much in this.
Yeah, and I just want, I know some clubs that pay hundreds of thousands to rent facilities to train on over the course of a year. And I'm talking about a single club. And I've heard of that in a few different places, about a few different clubs. And you just wonder how many, like, and Shane Brophy did a piece about this in the Nina Guardian a while back. Like, for example, could several clubs in North Tipperary, I'll pick as a good example, because there's a load of clubs in a small enough area. Like, could they all just club together and pay for an all-weather pitch, an all-weather facility with lights and, extensive dressing rooms? And if every club put in a couple of 100,000, if they were able to raise that everyone would sort of have a timeshare on it, that have a certain amount of hours per week or whatever, or maybe rent it to schools or whatever. Maybe it'll have to get to that stage too, because especially like maybe this year will be an anomaly, maybe not, but like up and down the country, pitches are just being closed time after time after time. And if you do want to play, you're going to have to be able to use these months also, Mike.
Oh yeah, big time. Yeah, like teams and clubs are literally scrambling to get like a ball wall or anything, or like a little training pitch at the back of a goals. Anything you can get is better than nothing at the minute. But like ideally, you want a pitch, obviously, and you want to be training on grass. It's just nearly impossible at the minute. The idea of in theory, lots of clubs kind of coming together and building an all-weather facility or whatever is really good in theory. In practice, how it would work with you've seen amalgamated teams and the problems that they have when there's only two clubs coming together. I can't imagine the squabbles over different days and when we have availability and when we don't have availability, and trying to get it signed off by a club executive and even at an AGM, and lads not wanting to have anything to do with their next door neighbours, and someone would turn in their grave if they knew that we were putting in money with this club or whatever. But in theory, the idea of it and lessening the load on different clubs and making sure there's a facility there that they can use. I think clubs need to kind of link in with any secondary schools in their areas, even something like that within a community school, shall we say, that 4 or 5 clubs are feeding into. Clubs could put maybe a nice bit of money into that and developing a facility there that's there for the community, shall we say, as well. But it's like with the way things are at the minute outside, like it's showing no sign of abating whatsoever.
Yeah, like throughout this show, it's been sunny, it's been raining, it's been sunny, and it's been raining again, just throughout this show. So it's ridiculous. And like even you see like young kids, like, and I see plenty of people posted online about how the soccer matches called off like 8 out of 9 weeks. I could have the number wrong, but just feels like they're constantly being called off.
Yeah, there's particularly in Dublin, you've mentioned there about clubs going, to other places to train and the eye-watering amounts that they're paying. A lot of clubs in Dublin, particularly for Saturday morning, where there's, academies and 8s, 9s, 10s, 11s, 12s, they're relying on kind of community pitches, or even in parks or whatever it is. And those pitches are just like totally out of bounds at the minute, just not available. So there's a massive, massive backlog of games, number one, but there's also been, a lot of particularly underage players, and as you mentioned, soccer players there that just haven't been able to train even unless they have the facilities available to them. I'm hoping to God it turns very, very soon.
Do you know, I heard a good one. There's a club in Dublin. I won't say the name of the club just in case it somehow ruffles feathers, but they had an all-weather pitch. No, it doesn't even matter if it was all-weather or a grass pitch. And they wanted to put lights on the pitch as well, obviously so you can train in the evening. But because of where it was based and it was sort of up the hill a little bit, if they put lights, that would interfere with the bats that live in the area. So they weren't given approval because of bats and disrupting their habitat. Isn't that good?
Wow. Yeah. Jenny Mac, yeah. Wasn't it bats that started cut the COVID back in the day?
Well, apparently, yeah. If you believe that old one.
Hey, last one, I'll leave you on this. I just want, what's your opinion on this? So I had heard that when one of the under 20 teams was competing in a game last week, that with let's just Team A have an under 20 championship game here with some of their senior team involved, maybe 3 or 4, that the senior county team are training at the same time as the under 20 game. So the senior county squad couldn't go and watch the under-20 game and support a couple of guys that were involved. What's your idea of that? What do you think of that?
I suppose, like, ideally you would I just wonder, like, how many of the players would be going over to support them. Like, fair enough, you'll have the odd lad who wants to see his old clubmate playing and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I suppose the fact that it's a Munster Championship, isn't it? I suppose that's the point you're coming to, really, isn't it?
That's Munster Championship.
Is that what you're talking about? That it was Munster Championship under 20 last week?
Yeah. I just find it a bit mad that you would organise that something would be organised for the same time as the county team is playing. Like, to me, it's one in, all in. And
it should be. You just wonder, like, what is the restraint around facilities and stuff like that? And you'd hope that something like that is the reason.
Yeah, I don't think that was the reason. Now, I don't like that kind of thing. I know, like, when I was playing back in the day, you'd love to be able to go to the 20s. You're all doing it for the same reason, like, because you want to play for your county for the same reasons. And any lads that wanted to go and support the under 20s, I think, should have been let go. But that's a brief aside.
What about county boards who schedule club matches that kind of clash with the inter-county match? I know, for example, Antrim they're playing Kilkenny on a Sunday coming up, and they've scheduled club league matches for the Saturday evening. So players can't actually decide, look, we'll head down to Kilkenny for the night before and then stay down for the match.
Yeah, it's not an easy job, but I don't think some people that doing the fixtures are living in the real world a lot of the time, and they don't look at what's on outside and give people a chance. You should never be undercutting. You should never be undercutting, the possibility of, less people going to support your county team as a result of something you're doing. You know what I mean? It's mad, I think. Mad.
Okay, well, look, that's it from the show this Thursday. We'll be back again on Monday. By the way, if you're anywhere near Thurles or any of the hurling hinterland around there, can I call it the hurling hinterland, Michael? Yeah. Well, make sure to come to the Dome for the championship preview night with our game. John Milan, Kieran Carey, Eddie Brennan, Seamus Callan, they'll all be there, presented by Sean Tracy's GA. Can't wait for that, Mike. It's going to be
and there'll be no bats there, Shano, and I'm hoping not anyway, but it's going to be great crack.
Right, I'll see you folks. See you on Monday.